I am
that is some special camera stuff right there.
joined by Barry Kirby. Over here to this direction.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Hello. Hi. High fiving.
Yeah, we could do that. Look,
having some camera issues tonight. Don't know what this is all about. Oh my god.
Have you tried to plug it in and plug it back in again?
I've tried that multiple times.
That is just something else. It's
really bizarre, right?
Yeah. It's just an extra level of special.
Like, there's got to be something fun that we could do for a short.
Well, if you keep on going like this all night, then I think the whole thing is going to be good for a short.
like the thing that I've just been doing is kind of sitting here and then just making random like poses. So it just like flashes to that random pose, right? So for example, let me just reset here. So I'm sitting here talking to you like this, right? And there's not much change, right? You can kind of see I'm bobbing a little bit, but then if I do something,
that's fine. Yeah, that's
it's just weird, right? Especially when I keep talking and I do something like that, and
it's a bit like stop animation just gone
a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yikes.
So with your camera issues and my desk restructuring, we're on fire. So
what does that look like? Hold on.
Okay, now you just look like some sort of rather. Oh, we're still not going to get
that was actually a really slow process, and it looked really violent.
It's impressive though.
Oh man, I feel like we haven't done this in a minute here, Barry, because it's been like what 3 weeks for 2 weeks for us. 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Nearly a month, dude.
Actually, hold on. So you and I actually last got together to record on the 17th. Wait, no, that's this month. The 13th, right? Because was it the 20th?
Didn't we do 20th, 19th, 18th, because we did it 2 days early. We did it on the Tuesday. Not the
No. I'm counting the Tuesday. 20th is the Tuesday, right? So okay. It's been 2.5 weeks since we've done this. Clearly out of practice. The old circuitry on the camera is not happy.
I was going to say the camera needs a some sort of
longer vacation here. Yeah. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to solve this problem here. I'll be a little. We can't have this for the main show. I'm sorry. We just cannot have this. I refuse. Hey Barry, I meant to bring this up to you because we got a question in our in our Discord just before we went live. I wanted to get your thoughts on this because we didn't really prepare a one more thing for it, and it is by one of our patrons who we love our patrons. We want to make sure that our patrons are answered. So the question is, where's the process that kills the camera? And then can I get that back easily? So the question is, you'd think I'd be more prepared for this. I was curious, for those in industry, has anyone heard if the current layoff trend is impacting Human Factors employees and teams?
That's interesting. So I guess from a UK perspective, that's boring. You're back to normal.
I know. Weird, huh? Oh. Weird when I'm doing like normal movements and stuff. Yeah, it is kind of weird, huh? Oops.
Oh, spoke too soon.
All right. Well, you know what? No, I guess no blurred background for me today. That's okay. That's okay. Well, don't need it anyway.
Because I'm on this laptop, I can do cool backgrounds. So I've changed my laptop to my better, more high-powered, what is now going to be my 1202 laptop, which will do all of my production and all that sort of stuff. And anyway, I've diverted from answering the question. So the question about
has anyone heard if the current layoff trend is impacting human factors employees and teams?
So in short, no. Is my belief. However, I will caveat that. So that's from a UK perspective, and from what I understand in Australia, New Zealand, that's true too. I think there's certainly here in the UK there is still stacks of jobs out there if you're a human factors or a UX practitioner. In fact, I'm about to open up potentially 2 roles in my own organization.
Hey, post it in the jobs channel in our Discord.
I will do, and that'll be an exclusive place to get them first because I'll put them there. There we go. They're like to come up next month. So there is lots of roles out there. However, I would caveat that with bigger organizations are certainly looking at their overall headcount, and if you've got certain bits where maybe your teams are if your capabilities lumped in with a wider organization, say as a wider function, then I've certainly seen a position where the wider function is being shrunk, which may affect just by the nature of numbers HF people. But I haven't seen it yet. But I'm sort of seeing people looking at their numbers. But fundamentally, in terms of actual roles, no, I'm not seeing any change. What about you? What's the US looking like?
Yeah, so the thing that I said is my hot take, and this is a pun. My hot take is that we're fairly insulated.
Hot take, yeah, I see you did that. That's clever.
Okay. Yeah. See, so from talks with colleagues, there's actually a lot of folks hiring right now for human factors UX roles, and Vanessa, our patron, also asked, hey, feel free to name drop. And I will. I just need to follow up with them as soon as I make sure that they are still, in fact, hiring. Because this has been, observation over a couple months. So, yeah, I think it's kind of the contrary right now, at least here in the States. And the other piece to that is even in the tech industry where I have other colleagues working, there's some chatter about like layoffs, but I haven't talked to anybody who feels like their specific role is threatened. And again, like most of my contacts are from the human factors world, like not from the design route up into research in the tech side, right? It's like scientific background, engineering background, and they're not worried. So I can't say for sure that the temperature in the market is I think we're insulated. I was trying to make another temperature related joke.
Yeah, you have to prepare them.
Yeah,
otherwise you'll end up in like cold water or something.
Yeah,
or you get a really icy reception.
Well played. Yeah, I think so I mean, overall, oh hey, you posted it right there.
I know, right?
Realize. There you go.
Well, because while you were messing around with the camera, I did things.
Oh yeah, apparently.
But it's good for anybody else who's watching and listening to get that. Either that's that warm fuzzy feeling that actually all is good in the domain, or if you are, there's loads of other people. Just because one person's asked the question, no doubt there's going to be a lot of other people thinking it too. So yes, I think that's good.
Yeah, I agree. So anyway, I'm going to move us into the conversation for tonight, which is, of course, airships are back, baby! Yeah!
Sorry, could you say that with a bit more excitement and a bit more, jubilation?
Airships, also more commonly known as blimps, zeppelins, are back, baby! Yeah.
Cool. That's what I like to see. A bit. You can always pass for British.
Oh, is that enthusiasm by British standards?
I've got a slight struggle with, because a friend of mine messaged me and said if I don't mention Archer as part of this Archer's attitudes to blimps, then he'll be very disappointed. And I'm like, well, that's great, but I've got no idea what you're talking about. So he sent me a YouTube link, and I watched like sort of the first bit of it, So yeah, I need to watch that at some point. But if you
Is
already
it?
know, what I'm talking about, then
I don't.
oh, okay.
I don't.
Right. In that case, I'm
I'm
going to.
I'm watching a clip now.
Oh, well done. Well, I put the clip in our notes. A reference to it.
Huh.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know how expertly we'll be able to sneak in an Archer reference into our show tonight about blimps. However, it's an incredibly exciting topic. I see. I'm just going to call it like I see it, Barry.
Right.
I see some words in the show notes that would indicate skepticism on your part.
I don't know what you could possibly mean, but yes, you're absolutely right. It's more around I love the idea of it. It's you're just having you seen them in very. I mean, they obviously end up in movies and things like that. Everything from James Bond all the way through to old war movies and stuff, and Doctor Who and things like that. We've got episodes with them in, and so brilliant and all. But fundamentally, we had one that blew up massively and never really went anywhere from there since. They're slow, they're cumbersome, they're liable to explode. Yeah, not convinced.
Have you heard of a single Goodyear accident happening? There is a reason why the Hindenburg was the Hindenburg.
It is, but it's that perception piece, isn't it?
Yes, it is. There's a perception piece, and we'll talk about that. I'm sure we can talk about that. There's actually, it's fascinating. There are multiple layers to the perception of airships and blimps, and not to I guess spoil what we're going to talk about in the show, but I have a really interesting piece here, Barry, at the tail end about what it means to different cultures to see a blimp in the sky.
Oh, okay. I like the whole culture and culture laydown.
And using a blimp in certain contexts for various operations could have some imagery and some weirdness about it. That's all I'm going to say for now. But I think it is definitely an interesting discussion. I'm really looking forward to tonight. There's some really cool stuff. I saw the words that would indicate skepticism on your part, and I went and I was like, oh, let me address that. Let me just go ahead and pad up the notes with some of that.
Which is what it's all about. Because for me, it's a bit like ChatGPT, which we've talked about twice. Well,
let's not do that. Let's not do that.
We haven't talked about it all this year. We talked about it a lot last year.
Let's not bring that up. It's terrible for ratings.
It's one of these things. It looks cool. It is cool. I'd quite like one at the back of the house just to sort of poodle off to work. But what's the use case? And I think that's where, I think tonight our notes sort of do focus a bit on, how is it used? How do we engage with it? And I've just been seeing your notes. I like a lot of that. But why? Why do we need one? And things like running costs and stuff like that. What is the big thing that we can turn around and say, yes, that's what they're going to be used for? Because the article doesn't really lend itself to that either. They just go, we solved all the problems with it, except the ones that probably are most crucial. Like, what's the point?
So, look, they bring up a really, really good example in the article. Like, I think that is a great way to view the lens here, and particularly this use case is the humanitarian aid.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, this article is talking about tech, but we're going to talk about the human factors applications of airships, and the piece itself is hinting that the tech is there for a revival. So potentially no more Hindenburgs. And, what does that mean, though? If we were to bring airships back out into the world for a variety of use cases that I'll bring up here. I mean, look, like just generally, we've already seen some use cases, one of which advertising. You see the Goodyear blimps at every U.S. American football game out there, right? And so, using this as a form of aerial advertising, everybody in that stadium sees it. It's going around. There's a camera on it, sponsored by. It's a part of culture.
Yes, they
Here in
do
the
make.
States.
I mean, even here in the UK, we do use them smaller versions as markers for everything from fruit farms all the way through to that. So I'll give you that one. You can have that. But I don't
Okay,
know where
all right.
you need
Okay.
to do it.
So I'll give you another use case that is being used today that is not necessarily part of the revival piece. Surveillance and mapping.
Yes. But that can also still be done by, and actually arguably a lot quicker by a fast jet with a really good sensor on the front.
Sure.
Having worked on said
Yeah.
sensors.
I'm just saying.
No, I think this is going to be something quite interesting to explore in the actual program, because there's things like you mentioned humanitarian earlier. Yeah, I'll give you that to a certain extent, because there is a cultural or certainly a behavioural aspect there around people seeing relief in the sky, and that type of reassurance, and I guess that sort of stuff. But is it actually, what's the cycle? Is that just a psychological benefit, or is it an actual mission benefit?
No, there are absolutely mission benefits to this.
Cool.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because there are mission. I hate that we're getting so deep into this in the pre-show, because I'm just like, yeah, let's go. Let me bring some stuff up here. Military, search and rescue, like humanitarian aid, agriculture. Like, let's go, man. I'm prepared.
At least one of us is. That's good.
I'm excited about airships. What can I say?
I'm just going to bring my bucket full of pessimism and skepticism and just throw it all over there and see how well you wash it away.
Tourism, entertainment. Come on, man. Like, there's some cool stuff. There's some cool stuff. All right. So, hey, we're in the pre-show. Did we get all the show notes in there? I think we have enough to talk about. I wanted to talk to you about one specific detail down at the last it came from, because you kind of shrugged your shoulders and said, I can't help. But it was more of a thing since we got called out. You mentioned a couple books on the show a couple weeks ago, and some folks were asking for the specific books. So I just used this as a springboard.
Oh, yeah.
For us to mention some specific books. So throw in some of your favorites there. And I think we're good on show notes anyway.
I see. You've taken it away from the
from that particular topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, in fact, I tell you, that gives me a really good springboard into one of the things I got over Christmas, which I put on things. So.
I loved that. That was awesome. Oh, those? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right, that way around. They're so cool.
I didn't realize those were that tiny.
Oh, yeah. And they're proper kids' books as well.
No, I know. I want a copy. I want a copy.
They're brilliant. They are the Pamela who wrote them. I think has just done an absolute genius job, and I don't know why nobody's come up with it before, but it's excellent. So
yeah, I saw that at HFES this year. I think there were a couple free copies out there that I just didn't get my hands on before they got taken up.
Yes, I have my copies.
That's great. That's great.
So
good callback too, because I like that.
And in fact, that's out of all the LinkedIn posts I've done,
that's the one that got the most attention.
That so much attention over everything else. Literally, like way more than it. And I'm like, I've done so much good content, and it's blowing up over a book that I didn't write. Great. But it's good because it's still sharing the word.
It is, yeah. Oh.
So did you get any other good Christmas presents
Um.
apart from poop in a scoop?
Oh, right. Yeah. No. Let's see. I got a family trip to California later this year. I think is kind of the big one. Um. So that's kind of the big present this year. Usually go big.
Cool.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Santa dropped off some pretty good toys for the boy. We got him a Monster Jam car wash set that we had in the closet for like 6 months or something. We kind of got it on sale, forgot we had it, and then meant to give it to him for his birthday and then didn't. And the wife was like, worried about giving it to him because then he's going to want to fill it up with water, and he does. But he's been playing with it without water, which is just great. No cleanup. It's pretty great. Oh man, I want to talk about your gift though. That you have for your one more thing, but I can't talk about it because it's your one more thing.
One more thing. Yes. So no, keep your hands off it for now. Well, I was
Go ahead.
I was going to say because I didn't. The first bit I had is my one more thing. I was like, actually, no, I've got something way cool to talk about because tomorrow is going to be interesting because I'm going to win a lads weekend, and so which would be fine, except it involves a 5-hour coach journey, which would not normally fine, except as when I was younger, I used to get really badly travel sick. So I'm not looking forward to this. But because I was going to do that as part of my one more thing, and then I was like, actually, I'm not going to, because nobody wants to be talking about people throwing up. So I'll leave. I thought then I'll leave that for the pre-show.
Wow. Sorry, I just I've been following this. This is what I really want to talk about, and it's in my one more thing, but we can talk about it in the pre-show. This circus that has been the House of Representatives election here in the States. Oh my God! Have you been following this? This is insane. They've just failed the 10th vote. Now they're on to an 11th.
So what was the numbers out the 10th vote? Is it exactly the same?
I don't know. I think they may be still voting at the time of this recording, but presumably there was so the numbers right now doesn't matter because enough people have voted against Kevin McCarthy to where he can't get it. So we move on to an 11th.
So do they just keep on going then? Presumably, in the UK, if a debate is happening in the House of Parliament in the House of Commons, if it keeps on going, then the day doesn't stop until I think its final vote is called or something around that. And literally in the recording, even if it goes to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock the next day, it's still the previous day. The day hasn't ended in Parliament. So it's still, if you started on Wednesday, it's still Wednesday, but it could still be Friday.
No, there's no time limit. The only pressure externally. So the way this works is that anyone on the floor can sort of nominate a speaker. Traditionally done by the more senior members, the more senior representatives. But, this circus, anyone's kind of jumping up there and saying, hey, I want so-and-so. So what's happening is that after a certain number of votes, they can either say, okay, we make a call to adjourn for today until X number of time, right? Like yesterday, they said, after 3 votes, they said, okay, we vote to adjourn until 8 o'clock tonight because they figured they can go away, have some discussion, come back, make the vote. Especially when there's all this gridlock. It's like there's nothing's going to happen unless. So what happened yesterday is this was the most intense I've seen C-SPAN too. Democrats wanted to basically, rake them through the mud and say, they all adjourned. They all came back at 8 p.m. and there was this another motion to adjourn until today at noon Eastern, and there was like this mad dash on the floor to get votes in because the motion would have continued to do the voting at night, but nobody wanted to do the voting. Anyway, it was the most intense I've seen C-SPAN. And just so they voted to come back to reconvene here today at noon Eastern. and they've been going at it since. This is the 4th vote today. We'll see if they do an 11th today, but they might call to adjourn and come back. But man, is this just it's so interesting, man. It's just like, I love watching this drama.
It makes politics interesting, for one, because then you get into, because normally these sort of things happen because they're generally ceremonial, aren't they? They're generally something that it's not contentious. It normally happens. That's fine until it doesn't. And then it's only now that you sort of get into, well, why does this happen? Why is there not a something to stop this from happening? And that's when you get the history, and you get the what's happened in the past, and what does the Constitution actually say in the States? Because in the UK we don't actually have a written constitution, and it's in the UK it's all done up well. In 1876, this is how it happened, and we've done it like that ever since, which is great until the point that it doesn't work. So yeah, it is interesting, and I think in this day and age, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it shows people that just because the way things that have happened in the past doesn't necessarily mean it's the way that things got to happen now, though it really should.
I mean, like, let me put it this way: the last time this happened, this many votes, I should say. Well, so the last time there were more than one vote for speaker was 100 years ago, 1923. And the last time there were this many votes for speaker was before the Civil War.
Nice.
So, like, yeah, this is living through history again. Fun times. I'm so riveted by this, and just like the personalities, just they're all just the worst.
The fact
people.
that you've got the people who are causing the problems or the upsets are doing it in the name of, obviously, President Trump, and yet even President Trump himself is sort of going like, stop doing this, just vote him in, just do it. And he's just like going, so it makes you interested. I think it's very interesting into the psyche of these individuals, into the psychology, the way that they're thinking about this, and what they hope to achieve. Are they actually hoping to achieve anything, or they're just trying to?
It's personal grudges, and they won't relent. That's the thing. It's personal grudges. They won't relent, and both of them. I was describing to you a car crash or a game of chicken where both of them have ripped out the steering wheel. Neither of them want to relent. One of them says, "I'm going to keep going until I win." The other one goes, "I'm never voting for you." It's like, the other 20, I guess, that have been repeatedly not voting. And then he's, consistently lost votes. And now there's like drama around people leaving to go do personal things because they didn't expect it to take this long. And it's like, none of them are getting paid until they actually get in. So that's kind of some motivation for them to get this thing resolved. Yeah. So, I think there's the real problems start to happen.
But there isn't another candidate sat there, is there? Sort of going, no, actually, I'm the Republican candidate who everybody loves. It's because this guy is the most popular one, isn't he?
He's the one that I wouldn't say he's the most popular.
But he's the one.
There are some who would get most votes, right? There are some that would get the most votes. He's not that person. He's the person who historically he was whip under Boehner, and so he was kind of next in line for the speaker position. And because of some drama that happened in 2016, he didn't quite get it. So but there was a suitable replacement, like, ready to go in the wings. And so now we're experiencing what that whole process looks like when it's played out, when there's not a replacement, when there's not a clear plan B. And it's just fascinating. So we can talk more about that in the post show, because we're about to go live here in just a couple minutes.
Really kind of why we're here.
Yeah, we are here to do that. And we have it's 28 after. Oh, okay. I'm looking at the clock wrong. Yeah, we got about a minute before we want to go live.
Something else I was going to set up and I just haven't got around to doing it is the extra camera.
The extra camera.
Because I was going to set up another camera to have a different view, sort of from this angle or this angle, just to mix it up a bit.
For the news, you just look direct. This is what you should do. You should set up a teleprompter that goes right over your camera, so that way when you read the news, you're looking right at the camera. And maybe have it as a camera B.
Yeah, funny you should say that. I've been looking at just such a setup because actually, if you look over here, can I get this to do it? Right. See the screen here?
Oh,
I'm tempted because I've been looking at these things. Oh, I've just put my camera into the wrong place as well. Into looking about whether I could do it. So then when we come to do the news, I could go and do that and bring the microphone with me or have a second microphone in it. Because I'm basically in exactly the same room. I'm just at the far end of it now. I've taken over my wife's desk.
there you go. That's how you do it. Hey, we're going to be right back. We'll be back to talk about airships. I'm so excited, Barry. Are you excited to talk about airships?
I think I'm not quite as excited as you are about it, but I'm willing to be motivated.
Okay, entertain my excitement. We'll be back. We'll be talking about this. Hey, you know what though? I gotta say, like before we even start, you sounded excited to talk about this when we were doing the full recap of everything last year, and they're like, "Oh, well, maybe we should talk about that. Maybe we should throw that back in."
I think it will be. I think it's. I love the principle. I love the idea. It's just the common sense usability, not usability.
Okay. Well, let's chat about it. All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Can you believe it's 2023 already? We're recording this live on January 5th, 2023. This is episode 269. Nice. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Start, you mean to go on. Happy New Year, Nick. I hope you had a fantastic holiday and it's great to be back.
It is great to be back, Barry. I am so thrilled to see you here today with your bright and shining face, ignoring some of my inappropriate jokes I make right at the top. We got a great show for you all tonight. We're going to be talking about how the tech is finally good enough for an airship revival. And later, we're going to be answering some questions from the community about job titles, what we think about democratizing research, and some of our favorite reading recommendations. But first, we got some programming notes here. Hey, did you know that we have been doing an entire Patreon refresh? We mentioned this briefly before we went on break, but we've updated some of the role titles to be a little bit more, I don't know, exclusive, alluring. But we've also clarified a lot of the benefits going on with our Patreon. You know, I think there's some roles that historically haven't really had a whole lot of extra benefits for the cost that was associated with them. And to remedy that, we've been sort of adding in some of these additional benefits. Human Factors Cast Academy is one of those new benefits, and that's an active development. That's where we're sort of developing courses behind the scenes. You subscribe as a Patreon at a certain tier, and you get access to all that resource. So that'll be and that's not just classes that we put together, but that's like actual resources that we come across in our day-to-day. We're just throwing everything up there available for you, something that you have as a reference. So now's a great time to become a patron. If your New Year's resolution is, hey, I want to support a small, independent human factors podcast that is encouraging pro-social science communication in the field of human factors, then now's your time. Barry, what's up at 1202?
So in 1202, we're still back in 2022. So we've got the 2022 recap, where we go over some of the statistics, some what people have been listening to, some of the most popular episodes, and generally just a general good look back into that. 2023, though, is looking quite cool. I've got some interviews lined up. So in January, we'll have the look into 2023, and there's going to be some really cool interviews coming in. So they're all just being organized and finalized as we speak. So yeah, quite excited about that.
Can I just say that I'm proud of you for what you've done over at 1202? You've really broken into a lot of new, different types of media, video being one of them, shorts being another one of them. I'm just proud of you, and I don't say that enough.
It's your fault, because if you had to raise the standard over here so high, then I wouldn't have felt I had to do it. But no, you pushed out there. But no, I appreciate that.
Yes, I am proud of you, Barry. And now let's get into the part of the show I'm so excited for. It's Yes, this is the part of the show all about human factors news. Barry, is today's story all about airships? Airships, 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 airship. What's the story?
So this week we're going to talk about ChatGPT,
Oh,
and
God.
no, this week we talked about the tech is thanks to Nick finally good enough for an airship revival. So in the early half of the 1900s, airships were seen as a huge advance in technology, able to carry huge weight over long distances. But the huge crews needed and the slow speed were seen as a major problem. And then with the Hindenburg disaster in 1937 and advances made during World War II in aircraft technology, they pretty much consigned the airship to history, with the exceptions being around advertising and sightseeing. However, Lighter Than Air, or LTA research, based in Mountain View in California, thinks it's time for a revival. And they're working on a new generation of airships. The company believes that airships have the potential to be used in humanitarian relief missions due to their ability to stay aloft for long periods of time, their long range, and their ability to carry significant payloads. LTA's Pathfinder 1 airship is 120 meters long, 20 meters in diameter, and is expected to carry around 4 tons of cargo, in addition to its crew, water ballast, and fuel. The airship will have a top speed of 65 knots and a sustained cruise speed of 35 to 40 knots. Pathfinder 1 is made with carbon fiber tubes attached to titanium hubs and has an outer covering made of a 3-layer laminate of synthetics. The airship also has 12 electric motors for propulsion and is controlled by a fly-by-wire system. Additionally, Pathfinder 1 is equipped with LiDAR sensors and a weather radar system. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on being able to take an airship to conference next year rather than just a flight?
Let's go! I'm so excited. Look, like I love. So let me tell a little anecdote that I didn't have planned for this, but at one point during a Halloween season, a group of us, in fact, one of the original hosts of the show, Billy, he put together a group, and we all kind of dressed up as steampunk characters, and as part of this, we had to create a backstory. I was an airship captain, so I'm a little bit partial to this. So, I mean, you can see where my love for this comes from, but I love this. This is awesome. Can we be the first Human Factors podcast to broadcast live from an airship? I would love to do this for HFES 2023. Let's reach out to leadership to see if we can do it. But
Only if we could get the Human Factors Cast logo on the side of the airship.
Oh, that's
How
it.
cool would that
That's
be?
it. Oh man, how expensive would that be? Barry, what are your sort of thoughts around this?
So I think it's purely from the airship bit alone, I think it's brilliant. I do think there is something quite majestic and awesome about the way that airship, you've got fast jets, you've got hot air balloons that kind of directionless, they're just wafted in the wind. You've got all different, helicopters and stuff, but they're all really manic, really, really, we just need to get to where we're going and we need to do it quickly and there and then. Whereas airships themselves just, it's not like a hot air balloon. They've got motion in the right direction. They go and crack on, do what they do, and they get there quite sedately. But they are big, sort of almost ponderous machines. So from that perspective, and what we've heard in the article about the way that they're using new technologies, the whole fly-by-wire system, I think is really, really interesting, and the impact of that will have for safety and things like that. But I can't help coming back to, and this is where my bucket of pessimism gets thrown all over this story, is why? What is the cost-effective use case of these? And I think this might be what we need to sort of get into a bit. For me, is what value does this give you over a helicopter, over a jet, over an aeroplane, over other different hot air balloon? Why is it good? What added value does it give you apart from just being really cool? So yeah, I think
I got you covered. I got you
good,
covered on
good.
that.
I can't wait. Teach me.
Sustained operations. That's the key here. With a helicopter or an airplane, without needing to refuel, you don't have the ability to do sustained operations. Also, With an airship, you can also use it as sort of a central command base, almost in a lot of ways. If it's in the sky, kind of positioned where it needs to be, you have access to see what's going on below you, right? And I think that's why this company here is looking at sort of using an airship in a humanitarian aid use case. Outside of that, let's talk through a couple other use cases. We'll come back to the humanitarian aid because it's a
Mhm.
really interesting one that carries some a lot of interesting human factors considerations for sure. But let's talk about some of the other things that we can do with airships, right? So you mentioned it in the blurb, advertising. You see a Goodyear
Yeah.
blimp across every football field, every game. It's part of the show. You get an aerial view from the Goodyear blimp. Like it's front and center. Everyone in that stadium can see that blimp flying around. Aerial advertising, right? So
And I
that's
presume
like
from what you know, like with the cameras on board and stuff, I would imagine it's a lot more of a stable platform than, say, a UAV, something with propellers on it that obviously
right.
will have a certain amount of vibration and things like that. And we know that UAVs at the moment still have a relatively short period in the air. For when they want to do stuff. So yes, as a platform for photography and for just being once you got the Human Factors Cast logo on the side of it, everybody will know about it.
Right, exactly. And you're right. I mean, even with helicopters, there's still some vibration there. Although the
Mhm.
camera systems on board those are typically compensated for it, and they usually don't have a whole lot of issues, and can take a lot more, I guess, unique pathways. Let's say,
Mhm.
and faster pathways than something that is slow and sluggish. But I think there is still, if you need a stationary camera on something, that brings me to my next point: surveillance and mapping, right?
Mhm.
Let's say you need uh you can equip it with cameras, other sensors. It can be used for mapping, environmental monitoring, surveillance, like I mentioned, just looking at various things. And I think from the perspective of intelligence, what's to say that you couldn't park this at the border of a country in the airspace of the bordering country and just, you know,
Yeah,
like
that's
for
true.
months, like just park it there. And
No, it's not really subtle though, is it?
no, it's not. It's not. I mean, I didn't say it's
It sounds
tactical.
No, but I mean, I think this is because most people sort of look at this and think of, and certainly I did, like right, has he got military application? In the grand scheme of things, I think not, because there are just too many different platforms that do what it could do better, and it's just a big target. But with what you're saying around, being a control center, around a some sort of relief or some sort of civilian-based coordination, then that has a lot of value in it.
Right. I mean, it could be like you could have the USS Mercy of the sky,
Yeah.
essentially, right? Where you have this floating hospital, for lack of a better term, some way to cart folks up to there. But then that also gets around the issue that the Mercy has, which it's coastal bound, where this could fly inland and park wherever it needs to, depending on what disaster is happening. So, I mean, from a military perspective, yeah, you're right. It's not going to have too many military purposes, but in terms of surveillance, communication, transportation, even in situations where perhaps something needs to be off the ground for a prolonged time. Really, what we're getting at here is that prolonged flight, where a helicopter could do it. Is it going to be as cost effective? As it's the whole speed, accuracy, cost trade off that you'd get with a helicopter versus an airship. Let's bring up some other use cases here. Telecommunications, we kind of brought up that mobile command center um, perspective, but think about this. Like, what happens if this type of technology could be affordable to countries that have sort of the inability to create traditional infrastructure? What if you put a blimp out there that was a central communications hub for that area, and that was their infrastructure? That'd be cool, kind of cool. Transportation and entertainment, I'm going to combine here because no one's going to use these for transportation. I think it would be cost inhibitive to do so, and time inhibitive to do so. Right, the prolonged, sustained operations of being able to get somewhere is there, but it would take you days, weeks, months, as opposed to airplane
But
travel.
then people do go on cruises.
That's the point I was gonna bring up about
Oh,
entertainment. So, if you
okay.
have if you treat them like cruise ships, then the destination isn't necessarily, or the location isn't necessarily the destination, but the mode of transportation is.
Yes.
And so you could build these cruise airships, which would be rad. I'd be super excited about that.
Yes.
I think it goes without saying, but scientific research could potentially be an application here, right? You have studying the Earth's atmosphere, conducting experiments even in microgravity if we can get them up that high. So, I mean, without the need to sort of have some sort of sustained uh, propellant, right? I think
Yeah.
that's the key there. Agriculture, so crop dusting, irrigation, pest control, especially in countries that don't necessarily have that infrastructure that I was talking about earlier. Environmental monitoring, we kind of talked a little bit about. I'm looking at a list if it's not completely clear. I didn't come up with all these myself. I'm bringing in the relevant ones, right? Some of these are not great. But in terms of construction too, in terms of like these places that are kind of off the grid or harder to get to, you could land an airship out there and just start building something when you don't necessarily have a cargo ship that can get out there. You can bring all of these materials up on an airship, bring them out, and that can be sort of the method of getting a lot of resources to a place that has traditionally no infrastructure for transportation, right? Instead of rail or road.
And I guess in many ways, where time isn't necessarily a critical factor, or you could time you know the timing well in advance, it
Right.
must be a fairly efficient way of doing it. Because once it's sort of because it'll have a certain level of momentum, and okay, it's not powered by an ion engine or anything like that. But if you can go so basically long and slow, and you need to get a whole raft of infrastructure without much ecological or climate damage, or even things like if you've gone into an area that maybe is noise sensitive and things like that, just the ability for it to almost waft in land, deploy a whole bunch of capability without having to have all the damage to the infrastructure on the way in, but still build something quite substantial.
Right.
That it's
And we are talking a lot about like what if. Here's a specific example of where this could really be um, a good example of how this could be used, right? So think about the traditional panels of transporting like renewable energy sources, solar panels, wind turbines, um, putting them in remote locations, middle of the desert, or really windy spots. Now that might be a little tricky for um, for an airship to do. However, if the conditions are right when they're landing, they could wait outside and come in, or land just outside that zone and move them in. So you could have, in these really remote areas, you have this renewable energy that's there that you don't necessarily have to transport again via truck on the roads, which you have. I don't know if you've ever seen this here in the States. You see it quite frequently, but like there's these trucks that carry the blades to these wind turbines and they're massive.
huge. Yeah, yeah,
They're massive. They're
yeah.
like, 3 or 4 buses long. And so, as you're driving on the street, not only is it dangerous for everybody around them, but it's, it's very costly mistake if you make that mistake. Load it up on an airship, bring it out there. You're good. Right?
And if you're going to do the wind farms at sea,
Yeah, exactly.
that's another way of potentially getting them out there as well.
Although I think a boat might be more
Exciting.
efficient at that point, but we'll.
Maybe depends how much of a risk taker you are.
Yeah, I guess it
Like I
does.
said,
And it depends on how, what resources are available, all that stuff. Anyway, I think we've gone through a lot of different use cases here. Let's talk about some of the human factors applications because again, as I think we should look at this through the disaster response sort of lens, the humanitarian aid, just because it is sort of an example that this specific company wants to look at. And really what this could be used for is damage assessment, coordination of those recovery efforts. So for hurricanes, earthquakes, those types of things.
Mhm.
We can talk about the broader human factors application, but I want to look at it through that lens. So where do you want to start? I've talked about a lot of use cases and we're just now starting.
So I want to get into the engineering of it really, because that's where this is my bread and butter stuff where I get quite excited. So so I started to dive into right. Well, what sort of interface? It's all fly by wire. So we're taking the latest technologies that you can have on any sort of jet aircraft or rotorcraft and be able to bring all of that sort of stuff in. Brilliant. And really that should be just chuck it in, let it go, because it's not fast, is it? It's slow. So actually that whole user interface bit of it should be easy. Yeah? You agree?
For the most
Um,
part. I
in
think I
theory.
think I think when we get to the what makes it unique, that is where
Mhm.
there's going to be some deviations here.
Yes. So
Generally, though, yeah.
in theory, what we should be able to do is take current cockpit technology and throw it in. And from a user perspective, almost everything else is gravy at that point. We can make that happen. However, and before we jump into the unique bit about what makes it unique that way, is, well, actually, do we need any sort of user interface at all? Given the speed, given what we're doing with it, should this just be either all remote control or just completely autonomous?
No and no. I think there should no, there should definitely be an operator on board, especially for some of these mission critical, um,
But
like,
why?
well, I think you have, especially in situations where uh, something can change quite rapidly,
Mhm.
new pieces of information, you need to be able to talk with crew. That is where it's going to be crucial that you have an onboard pilot. But I think in some cases, like you were saying, with like the remote distribution of green energy, like that can be automated. Fine, I don't have a preference there, but
I just think it opens up. So going back to the humanitarian operation idea, is if you've got, I mean, I do think that there needs to be crew on board, because I think we're down with that. But there is an opportunity here for an operator to be on the ground, and saying, rather than saying, right, move it forward a bit, forward a bit, forward a bit, down, they should be able to control it remotely and just dock it or bring it in themselves, a bit like you have on quite a lot of um, you know, large machinery now, where you have the remote, you have the ability to take the remote control out of the cab and do it and do some remote operation. I think this is asking for similar things somehow in a way that I haven't quite devised yet. But you could just imagine saying, right, okay, we come into you, use your login through your phone app and bring us in, or something of that nature. I just think that there's a whole load of ways that we could do with this to make it really cool. But I think that gives us a segue into why it's unique.
yeah. So let's talk about some of the attributes that make this thing so unique, right? One of them is the volume that this thing takes up, right? You mentioned this could be like a cargo ship in the sky. And
Mhm.
the size of this thing is just over, the specific one is just over the size of one football field, one American football field. And that is quite large. If you think about, in terms of things in flight, um, you have planes that are not that big. Um, are there any planes that are that big? I'm sure there's got to be at least one,
There's
right?
the Russian Antonov.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking like there's very few aircraft that are that large. And when it comes to navigating those things, you can think of like the Goodyear blimp as a good example. You're navigating sometimes in the middle of a city above the buildings, at a safe distance, but you can imagine in a situation where humanitarian need is needed, or humanitarian aid is needed, coming into a city and needing to, I don't know, drop supplies or transport people up and down. There's going to be some other considerations there from navigation perspective that are not necessarily present on other aircraft. You're not going to have a helicopter that large, that's for sure. And if it
Yeah.
operates in the same type of way that a helicopter operates, that's just something that you have to think about spatially in relation to your surroundings. Now, we've brought up the slow speed of these things many times, but I think one sort of critical aspect here that is going to be different is that it will take longer to develop the momentum to react to different things like weather systems, right? It does have powered engines, whether those are prop engines or jet engines. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's just that the inertia that it takes to respond to something will take longer to do. You also have like we talked about this, that's kind of where the benefit of these things exist, at least in my mind. And with that, you have the issue of crew fatigue, right? Classic human factors issue, where those on board either need to be taken care of or have shifts. So there's this whole other aspect to crew resource management that we now have to think about for folks on board these flights. What do their roles entail? How do they birth the people up on this? Do they even birth them on board, or do they birth them, somewhere else? Do they I don't know. Like, what kind of recreation do they have on board for the livelihood of these people, this crew?
Mm.
When the flights aren't 2 to 3 hours, it's like days. You got to start thinking about it like a naval deployment rather than a short flight. And then maintenance, there's probably some different maintenance schedule compared to other aircraft where one rip in the blimp here might not be so great. So that's definitely gotta
Bad day in the office.
yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's things, attitude to like FOD or foreign object debris
Mhm.
might it will be different, wouldn't it? Because obviously, yes, they don't necessarily land on the runway, but any sort of wash up is going to be an issue. Equally with the training as well. The training is going to be, you would think, quite different to air crew and air maintenance crew and things could normally transfer between types of aircraft, because generally they've got an engine in the back or they've got some engines on the wings. They go, and the principles are largely similar. I think that probably with an airship, it's fundamentally different. So you have to have a lot more unique training to get there.
Yeah, and speaking of training, I think that really is a good segue into what happens in the case of like an emergency situation, right? You mentioned loss of an engine, but what if we have Hindenburg 2.0 here? What kind of safety systems are on board? I don't believe they're using. I don't know. I don't know about airships that much, folks. Despite how much I've been excited about them, like, do they use flammable gas as a? I can't imagine that it would be as flammable as the Hindenburg, because they used what, helium in that thing.
Yeah, I think they're on about using helium in this as well.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Well, then,
but because of what they're doing there, they're being able to seal it in a much more in a much better way, because they're using synthetic. Because obviously in the Hindenburg they literally use canvas
mhm.
to do it, or doped cotton doped cotton canvas. Whereas the LTA version has 3-layer laminate of synthetics, including polyvinyl fluoride on the outermost layer. The middle layer is a loose weave of fire retardant, a word I can't say, fibers, and the inner layer is a polyester. So similar to what they use on racing boats.
Yeah,
So it's allowed them to integrate, I guess, materials with more characteristics against things that we don't want, i.e., fire, um,
bird
to make
strikes.
it, yeah. Well, crikey, yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? But also, you've been able to use like sort of modern metals and things, so to make it a lot lighter.
So let's look at the emergency here, the emergency situations. Let's say there is sort of a critical leak in the shell. What do they call it? The blimp.
Yeah,
Um,
yes,
whatever it is they call it. Really scientific, but whatever it is, let's say there's a leak and they're dropping altitude. There has to be some protocols in place for how to respond to that, and you're not going to be able to have the same amount of distance that you would in like an aircraft, right? Even helicopters, if they use they lose their engines, they're still going to glide down, as they don't just drop from the sky.
right.
Right, the rotation still keeps them going, especially because they're still coming down. So there's a way to recover in either of those scenarios. Now, if you're over a heavy populated area, or where this could damage potentially some things, you want to make sure you get out of that range. But like, what's the landing protocol for this thing in an emergency situation? You're not going to go to the nearest airstrip, and then you have to think about evacuation from that.
Yeah.
Right? Is it just the parachute and you're out, or are there things that you have to secure on board, especially if they are heavy and could fall out, and like, because theoretically, I'm imagining a crash in slow motion where you have a lot more time to determine what you need to do depending on how big that puncture is.
Yes.
um
Yeah.
but what do you need to secure to ensure that the safety of those on the ground, right? If something falls out, and I'd imagine, I don't know if anyway, that's just a consideration here, emergency situations.
But there's other. I mean, I guess there's other emergency situations as well which you need to consider. Things like, so it's a fly-by-wire system. What happens if you lose your
Right.
fly-by-wire? So you lose the ability to direct it. It turns into a big hot air balloon, and at the mercy of the literally at the mercy of the elements. It's things like that as well. So I guess the obvious one is to think about, as you sort of meant, is fire, because there is a massive cultural issue here, and because it's everybody. So even though, actually, it's interesting, not that many people know about the detail of the Hindenburg disaster. But everybody's heard of the Hindenburg disaster because everybody goes, "Oh,
Right.
airships, Hindenburg." It's bad, but the Hindenburg happened before the start of the Second World War, and they were still using hot air balloons and blimps all the way through the Second World War for all sorts of air defense, for intelligence, reconnaissance, all these sort of things. It was still being used. It was only because of really the efficiencies and the development in fast air technology that sort of rendered them obsolete. So, but people still think about the Hindenburg and still think that an airship is just going to blow up because that's what airships do. So,
Right.
how much of a barrier just on that perspective alone, because we know that once people get, and we've talked about it on the show numerous times, I think, when people have an idea in their heads that something is unsafe, then it almost doesn't matter how safe it is, people are just not going to use it. So what's it going to take to get over the Hindenburg?
That's a good question, and one that I don't know from a cultural perspective. Like, okay, today, Barry, would you step into an airship?
Yeah, could be cool.
I mentioned at the top I want to do a podcast from an airship. I want
Yeah.
one. So like, there are people like us who understand the technology and understand what's going on. I think it's going to be
But, to-
very
but,
similar,
but to
right?
put that into context, I'm also more than happy to be on the first SpaceX mission to Mars as well, and to go
Right.
and visit the moon. So that probably gives you an idea about my risk appetite about this new crazy stuff. Um,
Let me counteract that by saying I would not be on a flight to the moon or Mars. I'd be on like the 50th through 500th. I think that's more my threshold.
but how are we going to be on the first podcast from Mars if you're not going to be there, dude?
Well, we'll do it like HFES, where you remote and then I respond to you like 20 minutes later, and then you get it 20 minutes later, and then
That'll be the longest recording in the world. Anyway, sorry, we digress.
we do. But I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, I think from my perspective, I don't know how many people would have hangups in them if, for example, you had things like air tourism cruises where
Hmm.
you have sort of the experience of being on one of these things and floating above your favorite cities, and you can look down and disembark or debark, or I words are hard today, folks. But you get off and you see the city, and then you come back on and you go to the next city. I think that could be as they become more commonplace as like a cruise ship in a port in a major city, you start to see, higher adoption of these things. And I think there's enough people who understand what the limitations and of the Hindenburg were, and where the tech is at today, to understand what the difference between the two are. Right. I think, um, you know, we didn't. I don't know. Bad example, but I was going to say, we didn't stop going to space after some of the after Challenger. Like,
Yeah.
we still use space shuttles.
Yeah.
I mean, but that wasn't the public, so I mean, it's kind of like you have to.
But
But I mean, we don't stop using aircraft after after
yeah.
airplane disasters. There,
I mean, well, on a day by day basis, there are the biggest cause of accidents in the world is automobiles.
right, and
Yeah,
we ignore that.
we all jump in our car every day. So
Yep,
because our
yeah.
perception of risk is totally different now.
Now, when it comes to culture, there's some interesting things going on here that I'm wondering how we're going to play out in like every day. scenarios, or not everyday scenarios, in like these disaster relief scenarios, let's say that, right? How do different cultures view airships? Um, is there going to be some inherent, uh, I guess, like, oh, our saviors are coming from the sky, literally saviors coming from the sky, heavenly saviors? Are Is there any sort of imagery that sort of has an impact on people? If so, is this something that we want to do in humanitarian aid efforts for those cultures, right? Probably not. We probably want to try to do it a different way if it's going to have that big of an impact. I just don't know. These are questions that I have, not necessarily. I'm just opening cans of worms here. But
Well,
um, the presence of one of these airships too will it cause more panic? That's another question. It's like, oh, they're here. The Mercy is here. The
yeah.
like, is that going to cause more panic, or is it going to cause relief? Is it going to be a site that is, um, I don't know, like relieving to see, or just a sign of an omen?
And
I don't know.
that's definitely a way that I guess we in the human factors domain can help deliver that, because as we've said before, the side of this of an airship is a massive blank canvas. So is there opportunities there to be having messaging on the side of it, either static or dynamic?
Yeah,
So when you're coming into somewhere, I think the amount of cultures it would affect in thinking of that heavenly savior thing is probably quite small, because most countries now are connected one way or another
you're right.
uh, to think. But if they're being cut off and they don't know it's coming, or what the state of the world is, etc., etc., some people might see it as people, maybe other countries taking advantage, and so it's an invasion coming in. Because they're in distress, because they're in need and all that sort of stuff. So the ability to use this as a big messaging platform to say, right, we might not be able to come directly down and help you, but here's things that you need to do, and this is what we're here to do, and a big red cross on the side of it, type of thing as well.
Yeah,
Um,
or you could have, like you said, the digital messaging on the side. I would
mm,
love that. Either, like loudspeakers coming down, everything is fine, we're here to help, in their local
yes.
language. Yeah, that's nothing's wrong with that. Anyway, do you have any other loose rounds on this one? This one is a fun one for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting, and I think I look forward to hopefully following this, and maybe in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, when they get on to their they're going to do like build an air dock, and they're going to build another couple of versions of these. It'd be quite interesting to keep checking in with it, even in maybe just in the one more things, or something, just to see where they're going and what they're doing, and maybe if we keep on pushing the fact that we're talking about them, we may actually broadcast from there one day. That would be fun.
Ooh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, like, let them know that we're talking about them. We'd love to
Yeah,
be a part of that.
that would be
Exclusive
awesome.
Human Factors podcast. Yeah. Anyway, thank you to our patrons this week for selecting our topic, and thank you to our friends over IEEE Spectrum for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to our original articles on our weekly roundups in our blog. You can also join us on our Discord for more discussion on these stories. If you want to vote on what the story is for next week, we do post all those freely available to the public on our Patreon, so you can join us there, vote. Even if you're not a patron, you can vote there. And decide the fate of the show for next week. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to see what's going on in the Human Factors community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you as always to our patrons. We especially want to thank our Human Factors Cast all access patrons like Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you keep the show running. Truly, like all your support really matters. Really matters. We do a lot of stuff over here, so thank you. Hey, did you know that we also have a little community for everyone? We have a Discord that we have. You can get involved talking with other Human Factors professionals from all over the world. Get access to some of the resources we got our hands on over the last couple of years. We post websites in there all the time. Discussions about a variety of things lately. It's been sort of a discussion around undergraduate coursework and what might be good to augment your professional career in the human factors field. You can even chat with other people in the voice channel, although I've not seen that yet. Maybe you guys can be the first. I don't know. It's also where we conduct our lab chat, so we're very active in there, at least from the lab side. You can't see it, but we're active in there, and we know it's an effective tool for getting stuff done. So there's also career advice, and if you have questionnaires for your research that you want other people to take, or get some thoughts and opinions on from other human factors folks in the field, drop them there. It's a great community. I'm really happy to be a part of it, and really glad that so many of you have joined. So if you are interested in joining that little community of human factors folks, and non-human factors folks in there too, you can join us on our Discord. Links in the description. All right, why don't we go ahead and get into the next part of the show we like to call
It came from.
That's right. Switching gears, getting to It Came From. This is where we look all over the internet to bring you topics the community's talking about. So if you find any of these answers useful, give us a like wherever you're watching or listening to help other people find this type of content. We got 3 tonight. The first one here is by HF Woman on the Human Factors subreddit. I always like it when we get the Human Factors subreddit up in here. So this is, what is your job title? I'll be graduating in summer 2023 and in the middle of job hunting. Curious to see what job titles people have. When I look up human factors in LinkedIn, the majority of options are in UX roles that focus on design, and want a portfolio. Barry, what job titles have you seen out there? What job titles do you have had?
Well, my job title is quite easy. It's managing director.
There you go.
That's fairly generic. No, but I think you've got everything. So I've had, in fact, how many of mine have actually had human factors in them? So at the moment, I call myself human factors practitioner, just in very generic terms. Prior to that, when I was employed by other people, I was a human factors scientist, human factors research scientist. And then I've been a technical human factors scientist, technical human factors engineer, human factors engineer, human factors researcher. What was I? Oh, then one of my favorite. I was a technical specialist, and then I was a technical specialist in brackets generalist. So I couldn't quite never work. Yeah, no, that was different. But actually, in the grand scheme of things, what I would be looking for in the whole job hunting bit is basically anything that involves human factors and/or user experience UX, with a bit of HMI, HCI maybe, and if there's more generic, more specifics that you're interested in. But anything with human factors and ergonomics and UX, I think, are much more popular terms now than they have been in the past 10 years. So anything on that. The only other bit on, I guess I meant to mention on grades. Great. So basically we can talk about junior, senior principal, executive. They're all kind of dependent on what what the company does and how the company bounds them. So a principal human factors engineer in one company will not be the same. It might sound the same, look the same, but they won't be the same in a different company because they'll have bounded them differently in some way, to suit their just to give you a good excuse to pay you less, largely. But yeah, so that's just a thing on grade boundaries as well.
Yeah, for me, I'm not going to go through every job title I've had. I'll talk about sort of a common one that I have, and then one with human factors in it, and then one weird one. That's kind of the approach I'll take here. So the common one that I have that I see everywhere is senior user experience researcher. That's the title that I have right now. I think of myself as a human factors practitioner as well, Barry. Like I practitioner human factors when I do my job. And so the podcast too. So I practitioner human factors. I'm a human factors practitioner. In past jobs, I've had the title of human factors engineer. You've mentioned scientist, practitioner. I've seen all those variations. The one that I held was human factors engineer. And then the weird one was UX UI specialist. Doesn't really have, what does that mean? Like,
Everything.
so
Everything.
yeah, it does really vary, the gamut there in terms of, does it have human factors in the title? Does it not? What you're going to be looking for, at least in the job description, is the mention of human factors. And I think that's the important thing, is if they understand that you, as a trained in human factors, conducts human factor science, that type of thing, holds a master's or PhD from an accredited university with the focus in human factor psychology or engineering, HCI or similar. Those are the types of roles that I think, that you should look out for. Those are good ones. Yeah, nothing really else much to say on that one. Barry, any closing thoughts?
No, I think that's just, if you can stick with the human factors element, you will generally find the human factors jobs, I guess, should do what it says on the tin.
Yeah. All right. This next question here is one that infuriates me, by Fluffy Winston on the UX research. They say, what do we think about democratizing research? There's a big push in my company and industry in general about democratizing research. I was wondering, what is your take and experience with democratizing research? There's some additional context there, but Barry, taking research and giving it to other folks, how do you, or allowing other folks to do it? What do you think about that?
Oh, in principle, I'm going to be slightly contentious and say I think it's a good thing, because it sort of, if it's done properly, then it brings more people into the fold. It makes it less pretentious, and it opens up your methodologies to other people understanding how it's done because they're participating. However, that's not what this is about. Democratizing research is a drive by people to take away expertise from research, and for it to be people thinking that anybody can do it, and why do we need researchers anyway? Let's all democratize it and just get people to throw their own thoughts in without any structure, without any thought, without any serious rigor or methodology. And that's why I think it's one of these things. I think I stand by what I said. I think it's a great idea in principle. But actually, the amount of if you're doing it properly, then it needs supervision, it needs direction, it needs support. That's not what really they're trying to push for here. They're trying to save money, and they will get worse products because of it.
Yeah, when we talk about democratizing research, that to me is basically taking the research job and allowing other people in other roles to do it by empowering them to do so. I don't think that's right. I think you should have a researcher that moderates. But to Barry's point, you get input from plenty of people involved at every step along the way. That is where we really strive. I think, we talked about this a number of different times on the show, of we are the people pleasers. We bring everybody together in one room and try to hash it out. From a perspective of everybody coming to the table with different ideas, thoughts, opinions about something, and we take that and we develop a methodology that's going to be suitable for the needs of the product. Keep research with researchers. Democratizing, it's the same of like a product manager would not let you manage a product. A developer would not let you code. As a researcher, I'm not going to let you research. I will involve you in the process, certainly, but leave that to me. That's my thoughts on it. No.
Hands off our jobs.
Yeah. I'm not going to do that. All right. So last one up here, reading recommendations by Itchy Whisper on the UX research subreddit. Barry, I put this in here for a very specific reason. It's because we got called out. Did you see that call out?
Did we get called out?
We got
Why
called.
did we get called out?
You got called out.
I got called out.
This is your redemption arc. So I was wondering if anyone could possibly recommend any good reading material that I could look into. Barry, you mentioned this the other day on the show, that there are a handful of books that you could refer to, and you didn't mention what the name of it was. In fact, I didn't even catch that until you mentioned the name of it, and then I picked that book up for myself because it was missing from my library. So why don't you mention what that book was first, and then you can mention your other fun stuff here.
So the book my go-to book for pretty much everything in terms of methods is The Human Factors Methods, a practical guide for engineering and design. And it is really done like that. And it's by Stanton Salmon, Rafferty, Walker, Baber, and Jenkins. I've got the second edition. I think they're on something like the 4th or 5th edition now, which I haven't looked at to see how it's been refined. But it's just one of these books. If I have it on the side, I would have it easier to hand, but I've been recently reorganized the cabinet. I don't know where anything is. But basically, it's one of these books that you'll pick up, and it's full of all my post-its all the way through. It's full of my scribbles of how I adapt things and things like that. It's my go-to book on every single project I do. It's brilliant. There is a couple of different other books that I use, I guess, contextually, but I've got new books. I've got new books that I think are absolutely fantastic. And I got sent them just before Christmas. And I've been able to give them to my team, and I'm going to hold them up. And it is H is for Human Factors and U is for UX. And they're done by Pamela Stoffer and Gay at Bold Insight. And they are children's books. They are small children's books that explain in words of one syllable that I can understand what Human Factors is and what UX is, and it's great. I've put them in. I've given them to my children to look at, and they're like, "Oh, we understand what you do now." We've had them get. My staff have given them to their parents, and their parents now. Oh, that's what you do. I get it now, and they've just done it in such a way that is really nice, really good. They're available in the US for purchase. In anywhere else, if you talk to them nicely, and they'll send them to you for a donation to charity. If you want to find out more about them, then get on my LinkedIn, and I've mentioned them there, and various other people have mentioned them around the piece too. They're absolutely brilliant. I don't know why nobody's done this before. It's absolute genius.
Yeah, I've taken a look at some of the pages, and I concur with that, Barry. For me, I have a couple that I really like to just recommend. There's the classic "Don't Make Me Think." I think if you're trying to just sort of understand the space, that's a good starting point. And it's one that I really like to throw out there just because it goes into philosophy a little bit about why you shouldn't make people think about the things that they're trying to do. And then this one is always one that I like, that's fun, and that I recommend. It goes into dark patterns, but it's called Evil by Design by Chris Nodder. And it really does go into, it kind of breaks down dark patterns by the 7 deadly sins and how it appeals to those sins, and how humans are wanting to partake in different things because of the methods that are employed in these dark patterns. Is really good. Really good. Plenty of examples. Highly recommend it. All right.
So the other one that I didn't mention, I meant to, because I mentioned it in the other one and forgot to do it, was Human Factors and Ergonomics in Practice, which is around improving system performance and human well-being in the real world, which is by Stephen Chorrick and Claire Williams. That 2016. Again, more contextual about why and how you apply things rather than specific methods as such. But again, really well worth a read. So yes, I'm hopefully all the things I got called out for now, I've now repented and filled the hole.
Yeah, I think your redemption arc is good, and those are our book recommendations. I guess to start your year off right, get one of those books. I guess I don't know. We don't have affiliate links or anything for them, so I mean,
we should have thought about that.
We should, but I don't know. If you need help finding them, let us know, and we'll point you to in the right direction by posting some links for you. All right, now it's just one more thing, Barry. What's your one more thing?
So my one more thing is, we actually talked about space travel earlier, and I want to go back to my Christmas present this year. So my big Christmas present from my wife was a Challenger space shuttle. And it's huge, it's massive. It took me. I had the idea that I was going to build a because I didn't want, when you have like a nice cake or a biscuit, you don't want to eat it all at once because you want to savor it. And this thing came in a massive box with 17 bags inside it, and it's got the Hubble Space Telescope and it's got the shuttle itself, and the Hubble Space Telescope fits inside inside the shuttle, and you can take it out, and then you can basically put new sails on it, the big solar sails, and they've both got stands for each one of them and the little name tags. It's brilliant. So I was like, I'm going to do one small bag a day and do that. And I sort of did that for 2 or 3 days until we had a day where literally we weren't going to do very much, and I sat and did the proverbial equivalent of stuffing all of it in, or stuffing all the chocolate into my mouth. I built the entire thing, and it looks amazing.
You glutton.
So it's years since I've sat down and done a big Lego model. It's certainly never done one as sort of intricate and I guess grown up as this one is, and it's reignited my sort of love of Lego, and I want to get some more models and do some different ones because they're just brilliant.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. When I saw that, I was like, oh, that's the perfect one more thing, Barry. You got to bring it up on the show.
Yep.
I don't know if you were planning to bring it up on the show as a one more thing before I said that, but I'm really glad you did either way. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, I guess potty training update. Here we go. You ready? It's just shitty. And pun intended. I'm hot with the puns tonight.
Nice.
Hot take. Puns. Wait, that was in the pre-show. No one knows what the context for that. I did some puns in the pre-show. Hey, potty training. So it's been going actually pretty great. I gotta say, my son is just getting it. He's getting it. The hardest thing for him to do is to understand that he can put things down and go number 2, and then things will be right back there. The number 2 is hard right now. But I think we got a handle on the other stuff. So I'm all things considered, he's doing great. And it's new and stressful for both my wife and I and him. And there's been a couple moments where we've just had those oh my God, come on, just do the thing. Just do it. And it's it's frustrating for everybody, but at the end of the day, I think we all have, even him, have this mutual understanding that we're all learning about this process, because I've been very open. My wife and I've been very open and talking to him about this is new for you. This is new for mommy and daddy too. Really sorry. We're figuring this out. And I just think it's been a pretty crappy experience. Let me just put it that way. Well, hey, that's going to be it for today, everyone. If you like this episode and enjoy some of the discussion about maybe flying in comfort, I don't know, I'll encourage you to go listen to episode 250. What's the deal with double-decker airline seats? You go from cruising in luxury to cruising in this. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. Are you a fan of airships like I am? For more in-depth discussion, you can join us on our Discord community. Like I said, we got a whole bunch of Human Factors professionals in there, dropping some good nuggets of conversation. Sorry, potty's still in the brain. You can visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple things you can do. One, wherever you're at right now, leave us a 5-star review. That is free for you to do. Really helps people who are looking at the show deciding whether or not they want to listen. It helps them make that decision for them. 2, if you have friends, Barry's my only friend. So if you have friends, maybe tell them about the show and tell them that, hey, these people are doing a great Human Factors podcast over here. They just talked about airships this week. That was a ton of fun. This guy kind of lost his mind when he forgot how to say words. Or 3, if you have the financial means to, consider supporting us on Patreon. Like I said, we are always updating those rewards. We just did a huge refresh, trying to make sure that value is there for the folks who support the show. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. I want to thank Mr. Barry Kirby for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about use cases for airships?
Well, if you're going to talk to me about airships and other forms of air transport, then come find me on Twitter and other socials at Baz_K. Or if you want to come listen to this year's episodes of interviews with interesting human factors and human factors related people, then find me on 1202 The Human Factors Podcast at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on our Discord server and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time,
it
depends. They just started the 11th vote.
Really?
Yeah.
So did they have to put any sort of justification into this again by saying, right, we're going to do this vote again because the Earth might have flipped over and turned? I don't know.
I mean, the strategy here is to wear people down and
But if
be
they're
like,
that,
they're playing chicken. They're playing chicken. It's like, are you gonna blink? Because we're not gonna blink. Oh, you're not gonna blink. We're not gonna blink either.
nobody's blinking.
Right. It's definitely one of those things. It's a standoff, and it's a train wreck, and it's amazing, and I love it. I love every part of this.
But nobody wins. I'm struggling. I mean, normally you can sort of see if there's a bit of jockeying about, and some people are just trying to get into right. So, but this is just the pure old fashioned. We don't care about this, therefore, we're just going to keep on doing it.
Well, it's because these majorities are so slim.
Yeah,
it's because they have a 4-seat majority, and because of that, they can only afford to lose. Or wait, do they have 4 seats or 6 seats? No, they have 4 seats, I think. They can only afford to lose like 5
people out. Then actually, it's low.
Yeah, they need 218 is what they need, and they can only afford to lose like 5 or 6 different people. So that'd be a 6-seat majority. Anyway, the point is they can only afford to lose like 5 or 6, and so they've lost 20, and so because they've lost those 20 people, they need to make concessions with like 5 or 6 to get them on board. But because those 20 are so adamant about their beliefs, they're not getting on board. And this is the same party that's fighting.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's normally in any sort of party, if you're that close and you just need to do it to get business done, because you need a Republican. In your case, you need a Republican speaker, otherwise the entire party loses, because everything else could be sort of stalemated. Then what's the point? Somebody with some grown-up pants has got to go in there and do something about it. But you don't have any mechanisms in your constitution to do it, do you?
No.
So,
it's wonderful.
Which is great for entertainment value.
Oh, I love watching this. I am going to go and just enjoy this. Hopefully through the weekend. This is better than I don't know. This I just love having this up and just watching it.
It's I do the sort of same here, right? We have an entire channel dedicated to Parliament, and I do if I'm got nothing else on in the office, and I don't want to have the news up for whatever reason, I'll quite happily put Parliament TV on, just to see what's happening, and I guess it also helps that I know some of the characters in there as well, so you can say, oh, Garen's talking or Nia's talking or something like that. It's just it's interesting seeing it happen.
Yeah.
But yes, you're definitely in a period at the moment, which is very special.
Well, they're in the nomination phase right now, so now they're talking about they're nominating people, right? So the usuals, Jeffries and McCarthy, who are the two that have been getting the most votes. So Matt Gaetz just got up and formally nominated Donald Trump for the speakership. Goodness.
Can he do that?
Yeah, he can. Yeah, there's no law that says that the Speaker of the House has to be a standing member of the House. So they could theoretically nominate anybody, which is why, if there's a public figure that can unify the party or something, that's kind of the play here. This is hilarious, and I love it. But we should probably move on to talking about human factors things, since this is the post show for a human factors podcast. Although there's a whole bunch of human factors with this policy.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, this is one of the things. So one of my drives this year is about how to get human factors more involved in, or how to get human factors representation in government better.
Have you reached out to that person that I told you to reach out to about this topic?
I'm guessing not, because I can't remember who you said it was.
It's Micah Inslee.
Oh, no, I haven't. No.
She's on the GRC. So Government Relations Committee. So you should totally reach out to her about what we've been doing over here in the States, and potential great guest for your podcast. Just saying.
Yes, no, that is a good shout, and I'd completely forgotten about that because I had Christmas and stuff got in the way. But if I think there is that's why I'm now much more interested as well in sort of the way that it all works. Because I'm trying to do 2 levels of work, a bit at local government and a bit at national government level. So yes, it would be interesting. That's why I think this is all relevant.
Yeah,
because vast majority of people don't realize just how decisions are made on their behalf, which is why we think the government is done to us, not with us.
Right.
That's largely true because government is largely done to us. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Then because we were also saying in the, did we say this in the pre-show? I can't remember. This is these bits in time sort of give you proper realization about just how fragile democracy actually is. We have a whole lot of things that we do ceremoniously and things like that because it's always been done that way. But all it takes is for some people to come and disrupt or question or push the boundaries of, and you suddenly realize that actually things that you take for granted aren't necessarily things that we should be taking for granted. It's so really what they're doing is not necessarily a bad thing, but after a while you just think, you've had enough fun now. Let the grown-ups back in the room.
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem here is that they're like, specifically with this thing, is that like normally all this stuff happens behind closed curtains, and now it's out in the public because they couldn't get their shit together before this Congress began, and technically still hasn't begun.
That's begun, yeah, has it? Because I'm going to guess fundamentally, it's the art of persuasion, isn't it? It's the art of delivery, that what politics has always been about. And what this is demonstrating is actually they haven't been able to get their own way. So they're just trying to work out what big levers they can play with. And it turns out that, a small number of people are holding quite a large lever, which people won't see the true impact of. Probably for, if this carries on, you cited some numbers in the pre-show around how long this could go on for, potentially. Historically has been proven to do so. I mean, fundamentally, this means that people won't get services delivered because Congress hasn't started, or these type of what the knock-on effects of this happening.
Well, I mean, before the last Congress ended, we just passed a big bill that will fund through the end of this year. So at least we got we have it figured out through the end of this year.
Oh well, that's all right then. That's cool.
Yeah.
In that case, I think they should hold out for as long as they can then.
Yeah, exactly, because that is less days in which this government will function with this circus.
Yes,
on this branch. I'll say that.
It's exciting times in which we live.
Yes, for sure. I was going to bring something up to you that I forgot. I don't know. I forgot. It was airship related.
We've done that now. We talked about airships.
We're done. Are we done talking about airships?
I think so. We did a fairly exhaustive, I think. And I allowed you to win me around at the end. Did you notice that? Yeah.
You allowed me.
Yeah.
It's the art of persuasion. I got you. What's that happen?
We've been offered promotion of the channel.
Yeah, I saw that.
Better than anyone else. They can do that.
Than anyone else.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh man.
Let's see. That's broken.
Yes. So I think of, I don't know. I have like a vision of airships being cyberpunk future type thing, which is which is interesting since they're more like steampunk, but I can totally imagine them being cyberpunk future too, right? Where you have sort of these big marquee LED displays on the side of airships just floating through a city.
Well, it just makes sense. And I guess that's the sort of imagery I was trying to think of when trying to describe the movie side of the thing, because I'm fairly sure there's a bunch of movies that have used that cyberpunk idea in them, and I don't know. In my head, I've got things. Oh, I can see the film in my head, and I can't remember what it's called. But also, I know there were some episodes of Doctor Who that had them in.
Oh, right. Maybe that's where I'm thinking of.
So Doctor Who had an episode of where there was loads of airships all over London.
Yeah.
Which is cool. There's been one, if not two episodes of James Bond that have had airships in them.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're evocative in terms of ideas and stuff. So, but I do think so. I think the whole steampunk thing is I really like airships in the whole steampunk thing. But then I just like steampunk, so that's
yeah.
Cool. We had a steampunk party once; it was very good. Quite enjoyed it.
Oh, did you? What did you go as?
I didn't have a specific character, but I had I spent a lot of time and effort dressing up Nerf guns as with like cogs and all that sort of stuff to make my steampunk guns, and bits and bobs like that. So good fun. I totally enjoyed it.
I am going to do something really quick. A futuristic cyberpunk airship / blimp with the human factors cast logo on the side. Let's try this. We'll see what happens. Forgive me for not being completely transparent with what I am doing right now.
I'm intrigued. I just found, because I was quickly trying to remember which books I wanted to know all of the authors of the book I was recommending earlier, and I've just found on an adjacent link a book called Human Factors for Engineers, done by Carl Sandham and Roger Harvey, of which I know and don't knew because I think Roger died. Because I was on a committee with them at the same time. So it was produced in 2004. It's now only like £4. I'm very tempted to get it because apparently it talks about human factors and practical and pragmatic advice to assist engineers in designing interactive systems that are safer, more secure, and easier to use. That's a good idea. We should do some of that.
Yeah. All right. There you go. I did not tell you what I was doing.
No.
But here you go. So I have... let me take this away so we can see it a little better. So I put into a generator here, a futuristic cyberpunk airship / blimp with the Human Factors Cast logo on the side of it flying through a city. No Human Factors Cast logo to be found, although some of this artwork is pretty cool.
Yeah. Or like the one on the top left as it sits at the moment.
This one?
That one, yeah. That's cool.
That's your favorite? All right. How about we generate a couple more? Futuristic cyberpunk airship blimp with the Human Factors Cast logo on the side of it. Okay. All right. Wow, that one's all right. A little
that looks different, yeah. What do we want to say for this? Airship blimp. In the style of Minecraft and Leibovitz style photography. Do the style of Minecraft, just see what it does.
Okay, just see what happens. The style of Minecraft. All right.
That's genius. Oh, I like that.
I like the Anne Leibovitz photography. Where? I can't get it back. Let's try something else. Old Polaroid as fire. Sustainable architecture. Colorful style. Let's do colorful style. Ooh, all right.
That's nice.
What else do I want to try? DreamWorks movie digital art.
Oh yeah, DreamWorks version.
Harlem Renaissance.
So in the style of Salvador Dali would be quite cool.
Let's do one more after this and then call it done here. Let's see here. What about in a high quality render from Octane? Let's see what that looks like. All right, they're all pretty samey. I don't know. Like that's the problem with AI images for me. It's like it all comes back a little samey after a while. You see like, oh, I can see what elements you're reusing in these. You've just skinned them differently.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't think art will replace, or AI will not replace artists.
So how have you found getting into going back to work in the new year? Has it been
hard?
Yeah, I'm struggling.
How's it been for you? Yeah, struggling.
Difficult, yeah. Because normally I normally am awake just before. So my alarm goes off at 6. I'm normally awake just before that, and then so I'm up out of bed, downstairs, dog out, all that sort of stuff. Drive to work. If I'm working from the cabin, working from here, I'll come here about 6:30. But I've worked out the office all week this week, and so we normally get in there for about 7:00. So drive to work, leave here about 27. I've struggled to get out of bed. I really have. I'm not used to sleeping in, but I got into a thing of maybe not waking up till just before 8:00, which is just rare, which just proves how tired I was.
Right.
And then now, I mean, normally on a Thursday night, I'd be really good to go until just after midnight. But even now, I can feel I'm flagging. And getting up in the morning has been a struggle. I think it'll take me a couple of weeks to get back into the swing of things. But it's just been, it's been tough.
Yeah, I've had to be up a couple times this week just for meetings that happened at like 7. And I've been so sluggish with trying to get going on tasks because like I don't know, usually I feel rested, but because of potty training I don't feel rested. I feel stressed. And so it's not felt like a true break. It's felt like I paused one job and just worked extra hard at another job that I also do full time. It's
if it makes you feel any better, our eldest daughter, 18 years old, we still had to wait up for her on New Year's Eve because it was her first New Year's Eve out as an adult, as it were, as a ability to go and drink type adult. And so she was like, oh, she went out. She then messaged us saying, oh, we just have a message from the taxi driver. The taxi driver's cancelled because they're going to get a taxi back at 3:00 in the morning. And yeah, so all through that hassle. So the trouble with potty training now, and having to be there at the beck and call for every little thing that they do. I'd like to say it goes away, just changes.
Yeah, and I'm okay with it changing because to me there are some phases that are easier than others. Like I keep joking with my wife. I'm like, give me the stage where he is like, in high school dealing with interpersonal communication issues. Like, give me that. That's I feel like that's going to be not much easier, but it will.
You got to say, be careful what you wish for.
It will be. I'm not necessarily looking forward to that, but I feel like I will be better at that than I will be at potty training. Because interpersonal communications is what I do.
It doesn't make it any easier when they're your
No,
own.
I know.
The irony is that because you still only got one, haven't you?
Yeah.
So what made us laugh is we had one, and then we were like, right, okay, we got this nailed. We've done the hard yards. We know all about. We're great parents now. We could have another one. So 2 years later, we had another one, and we're like, right. And she was so different. The whole experience from start to finish was so different from the first one. We were like, oh, maybe it's linear then. Maybe we've had both ends of the scale. So that means a third one will be somewhere in the middle of the scale. So
but you had the middle. You had the middle in one of the first two.
No, it's triangular. So
okay.
The third one was just
great.
completely end, and he was like going, oh, well, and it didn't have the first two were girls, and then our youngest is a boy, and you're like, oh, that's just thrown everything off. So yeah, they're all different challenges, different motivations, but from a social science and a psychological science experiment, it's brilliant fun.
Oh yeah,
because you can experiment on them, and nobody can tell the difference, and nobody can tell you off.
Right, and I mean, isn't all of parenting experimentation? Pretty
much, because it depends which one you use as your control, I guess. But
yeah.
So
we're doing it with no control over here. Man, I don't know about you, but I am just drained.
Yeah. And at least I've got an excuse. It's 10 to midnight over here. You've still got...
Yeah, I still got post-production on this podcast to go. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it today. I'm just
do tomorrow.
A little tired. No, I can't do that. I can't leave because tomorrow morning is our lab meet, and I will just try to be there. It's a kickoff. I just can't leave something unfinished. When I know it's done, I there's this whole ceremony that I go through at night. And it's just like, all right, there's the last one. It's out. I'm done. Decompress.
Yes, what I'm going to do tomorrow night is, like I said, I'm going away on this lads weekend. However, I will be taking my phone with me, and so I'm going to try and dial in, but I might be in a pub. So I might put myself on mute and just listen to what you got on about.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'll give you two of the pub when I'm there. Depends, I guess, kind of how drunk I am, really. Will depend on what the rest of the lab gets.
Yeah.
It'll be exciting.
Very exciting.
I've got you nervous now, haven't I?
Yeah. We should make drinks mandatory for the lab, although I can't because of medication. So.
I can't just because of the lawsuit, but
oh right, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, it looks like they're gonna go to 12th here because they just lost 6 votes. So that'll be fun.
So do they bother going through the rest of the votes, or do they just say
no? They go through all of them. They got to get it for the record.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So should it be just easier just to sort of say, right? Is there anybody right? They should just do it by show of hands.
Well, sometimes they do voice vote, but they can't do voice vote in this matter because it's not unanimous or it's not a binary decision. There's multiple people on the ballot, right? Like,
that's great, yeah.
So
that's just funny.
Yep. So he can afford to lose 6. He's lost 7 now. He's lost 7 people. Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. I wonder 12 times the charm, maybe.
But then, like I say, if they're not discussing, they're not doing anything in between times.
They're nominating new people. So they're like testing the waters to see if anyone wants to come away. But yeah, I agree. There's not really any. I mean, if you're watching C-SPAN, you'll see a bunch of people having conversations throughout this. It's not like they're just all sitting there. They're having conversations. They're like, "What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?" Right? But it's not working.
I bet the WhatsApp group is something to look at.
The what?
Their WhatsApp group. I bet it's something.
Oh yeah. Well, half of these people are so old they don't know what WhatsApp is.
That's true. So,
I vote we get out of here just a little early today. I am exhausted. Oh my goodness.
With that, we can do that.
All right. Cool.
You enjoy watching your country devolve itself into back to the quagmire. I think the UK will turn around.
One branch.
We'll next week we'll turn around and say, look, you've had your fun now. We're going to come and take you back again because you can't.
Well, it's just hey, look. To be fair, it's just one branch. It's just one branch. The other branches are functioning phenomenally. So true. Like,
that's fine. Cool. Well, have yourself a good one, and I shall chat to you tomorrow, and we shall do this again next week.
All right. Bye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast Network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember,